season auction around 3 tables pushed together at the back of the place. Even though a late March snowstorm dropped 3 inches of the white stuff on the city this afternoon, the Mets and Yankees and the other 28 teams start playing for real on Monday. So, Gary and his fellow fantasy league owners have to follow suit. The lone waitress, with Wanda embroidered on her blouse, approaches the group carrying a tray of beers. She hands them out and asks, "Have any of you considered food?" Gary looks up at her from his clutter of papers. "Tell me, Wanda, should I go $22 on Yennis Cespedes? He's missed more than half the season each of the last 2 years." "Really?" "Yeah, bad wheels." She smiles. This banter between them goes on all the time. "Tell me about it. I'm still driving a Cutlass Sierra. Hey, why not save $3 and get the fish and chips?" Bill Pinzler, an intellectual property lawyer and the owner of the reigning league champs, the Needlers and Pinzlers, breaks in with a bit of his own. $22 on Cespedes and the fish and chips." She writes up his order as Bill's husband, Colin, acting as the league's auctioneer, counts down. 22 going once, going twice, 23. Gary has to have his favorite met. Under his breath, Bill stage whispers, "You are such a homer." Colin starts in again. "Going once, going twice." Gary turns to Wanda. "And I'll have the bacon cheeseburger, medium rare." Simultaneously, the waitress and Colin pronounce, "Sold." Colin continues with, $23 to the even Stevens, as he enters the player's name and the amount of make-believe dollars on a spreadsheet. Massive Paul Steinmetz, a house mover and sometime actor, has been watching the Mets' last Florida exhibition game on the bar's television. Now he taps Gary on the shoulder. "Gar, your new boy just smacked one." As Gary shifts his attention to the TV, a newsbreak graphic interrupts the game, and an unseen announcer intones, "We go to Bob Pryor in Washington." The rotisserie owners aren't happy. "Damn it, no politics, back to the game." The TV cuts to a generic correspondent in generic suit and tie standing in front of the White House. "The Chinese government today announced plans to put a man on the moon." There's more groaning from the crowd and tumulties. "Come on, who gives a rat's?" Gary does. With eyes locked on the TV, he says, "Guys, hold it down." Now the tube is showing the Chinese press conference, complete with photoshopped flags of the U.S. and China side by side on the moon's Sea of Tranquility. The newsman speaks over the images. The surprise mission is slated for July, 18 months after China successfully landed an unmanned spacecraft on the far side of the moon. Its avowed purpose is to underscore the peaceful intentions of the Chinese people and their goodwill toward America. Gary muses to himself. Well, I'll be damned. Bob Pryor is back on screen reading from notes. The President's statement released moments ago says, "We welcome any advance in man's march of progress and in solidifying our warm ties with the people of China." Then he looks up with a wry smile. This, of course, despite the convictions of 17 Chinese nationals for hacking into U.S. databases and the expulsion of 14 Americans from China in retaliation. He continues, moving to the next page of notes. The President's statement goes on to say, "I'm reversing the course my predecessor's administration undertook in the name of his so-called Space Force when he pulled us out of the United Nations Outer Space Treaty. Today, America seeks not to dominate space, but to share it peacefully. To that end, I urge the Congress to re-ratify the UN treaty and—" Hissing and booing from the bored rotisserie players and tumulties, joined by the smattering of other patrons in the bar, drowns out the rest of Pryor's announcement. The network's newsbreak graphic returns to the screen as the unseen voice says, "We'll have more as the story develops." The TV returns to Yennis Cespedes dusting himself off on third. The rotisserie guys approve. "All right, finally." Gary turns to Steinmetz. "Can I borrow your phone?" The house mover gives a "can you believe this guy" look to the others at the table. This has happened before to every guy at the table. Gary, the much sought-after TV director, refuses to carry a phone. The big man shrugs in resignation and hands over his cell phone.